Start with the flag salute. In recognition of free speech and the following board agenda item, we welcome all and would like to note that saying the Pledge of Allegiance is not a requirement to participate in the business of this public board. If you do not say the pledge for religious, political, social, or personal reasons, you are most welcome here as an equal participant in the business of this board. Okay, for those that wish to participate, please stand. Salute. Pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. For announcement of action taken in closed session, we actually have a vote to take. On item 2022-2301, do I have a motion?
Move to approve the recommendation.
Okay, and do I have a second? Okay, Trustee Anderson seconds. Let's do a roll call vote. Mr. Mason, you don't get a vote on this one because it's a closed session. So Trustee Lee?
Aye.
Trustee Anderson?
Aye.
Trustee Kelly?
Aye.
Trustee Pope?
Aye.
And chair votes aye, unanimously approved. Okay, moving on to adoption of agenda. Do I have a motion on this?
A motion to adopt the agenda.
Okay.
Second.
And seconded. Mr. Mason?
Aye.
Trustee Lee?
Aye.
Trustee Kelly?
Aye.
Trustee Pope?
Aye.
And chair votes aye, agenda is adopted.
Tonight.
Okay, moving on to organization reports. We have Vanessa Mason, President of CUTA.
Hi, good evening. So for my board report this evening, I want to talk about all the great things that are going on in the district. Specifically at Oak Hill, they have been raising money to support a project at the Shriners Children's Hospital to build a bridge that's connecting the Shriners Hospital to UC Davis Med Center. So today all the money was collected and they don't have a total yet. So that's very exciting.
Wow.
Amazing. It's near and dear to my heart as my husband is also a Shriner. Let's see. Many of our school campuses celebrated Red Ribbon Week a couple weeks ago. And Dudley had Family Science Night for primary age students with Red Ribbon Week. And they did a door decorating contest. And so all of the classrooms decorated their doors. And then there were prizes awarded at McClellan, which was very impressive. And I did ask the McClellan reps to see if they could have a student rep come to the meetings. They had 42 students made the honor roll, and so many families were there, and I think many of the board members were there as well. And they had an elective showcase, so all of the electives that they have on campus had some sort of final projects presenting, so it sounded really amazing. I think that's it for my board report. So we're all looking forward to Thanksgiving. Us, CUTA, is very thankful to be part of this district, the school board, the executive teams that we have, and then all of these wonderful things going on our campuses. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, for CSEA, Naisha Harris.
And I did speak with Ms. Harris yesterday, and she said she had nothing to report, so
Okay,
thank you for the time.
moving along. Reports, presentations, the Panorama Family Survey results with Mike Jordan.
Good evening. Good evening. We're actually going to switch 2 and 1, just flip-flop them, please.
Sure,
And
so-
we'll do the iReady report first.
So this is the fall 2022 iReady scores.
Correct. That is correct.
Sure, we're flexible.
All right, so this assessment we just completed about a month or so. It was kindergarten through grade 12. In this, just as a reminder for Center High School, when you're looking at those scores, it's not all students at Center High School. We did take some of the students out of that, such as our AP students, so on and so forth, because the purpose of iReady at the high school level is to do intervention, both in English and math. So if a student was already in like an AP calculus, for example, we knew there wasn't going to be a need for an intervention. necessarily. And iReady wasn't going to show that. This is our completion rates. You can see, again, exclude the high school because not all students at the high school are taking it. We're in the 95, or 90 and above, at least 92%. So we had a very good completion rate going in at all grade levels. And I'm going to just give you kind of an overview of the district, and then I'm going to have the principal of Oak Hill come up and show you what we've actually done with the scores at the site level. So we have what's called the data culture meeting. That's where all of our sites get together, all of our admin, academic coordinators, so on and so forth. And we look at, first, these are the district level scores, and you have copies in your packet. I'm just using one example from that. You have it broken down as low as you want to go. If you want even further disaggregation, let me know, and I can go into the system and disaggregate it even more. So we look at the district level scores. And in this case, we're looking at it in two ways. One through the iReady system, Curriculum Associates, and one through what we call Forecast 5, which is just another way of breaking it down. Then we have the sites get their site-specific information, and that's where the action plans are built. And that's where the true work comes in. That's where these scores then are used to inform instruction in what we do in the classroom. Again, this is our math scores, completion rates, 90% and above, which is fantastic. And again, just a sampling of what it looks like at the district level. And again, you have that in your packet. And again, just a sampling of our math scores at the big district level view. All right, so what do? Each site looks at their site, just as I said, looks at their site level data, and we want to use the majority of our presentation tonight to show you specifically drilling down at one school site, and in this case, thank you, the principal of Oak Hill Elementary has graciously volunteered to come up and help us out. We appreciate it.
So is this on, Mike? Okay. I've sat through enough where this isn't on, so I've learned my lessons. So good evening, Superintendent Lair, Board President, and Board members. My name is Parveen Sains, and I serve as the principal at Oak Hill Elementary. Thank you for inviting me to share what happens once we get these fresh batches of data from iReady. So the cycle of inquiry. This figure illustrates our approach in a nutshell in how we use data to ground our discussion in creating school-wide and grade-level goals, student groupings based on the identified areas of need, and also a focus on our instructional practices. The foundation of this work started with a book study focused on how to transform schools into professional learning communities. The main gist of PLCs, it consists of having a process in which educators work collaboratively in recurring cycles of inquiry and action to achieve better results for students. It's an ongoing, continuous, never-ending process which focuses on 4 essential questions. It's basically, what do we expect our students to learn? How will we know that they've learned it? How will we extend the learning for those who have learned it already and have mastered the skills? And how will we respond for those students who haven't learned it? This slide shows you the district-wide data protocol that we use during our PLC collaboration. So this structured approach of a protocol has clear norms and expectations for conversations so that we have a safe space for all participants. This protocol supports equity of voice, allowing all members to describe the data, make inferences, and implications for future work. I'm a huge fan of protocols, and so if you go to the National Schools Reform Faculty website, there are multiple protocols to use for multiple courageous conversations that can be used with parents, students, staff. So the next few slides will show you data from the iReady diagnostic number 1 that's specific to Oak Hill. This is the work that we focus on, which Mr. Jordan just shared during our data collaboration, culture collaboration meetings with our admin team. Becky Lawson does an exceptional job of facilitating this data protocol with our teams at the district office admin level. This work allows us as administrators to take the work back to our grade level leads, whole staff, school site council, ELAC, so that we could create and refine school level goals with metrics that are aligned with the LCAP for our SIPSAs. So I'm not going to go into details of the data in this presentation, but would like to share some highlights, which focus on our GLOWs, which are areas of strength, along with our GROWs, areas that we need to refine. This slideshow is a snapshot of Diagnostic 1. This one focuses on English Language Arts. The graph on the top left includes all students. The graph on the bottom right includes data for our English language learners. The percentage is in the red are students who are performing 2 or more grade levels below. The percentages in yellow are students who are performing 1 grade level below. And the green are students who are performing at or above grade level. The next slide focuses on math. In order for our teachers to make strategic instructional decisions, additional information is needed beyond this balcony view snapshot. Think of this as your initial call to Kaiser to tell the advice nurse that you're sick. There's going to be additional questions the nurse asks in order to triage to make sure you are sent to the appropriate department. So the additional questions could be specifically like for English Language Arts. The iReady data provides information based on specific domains. So for English Language Arts, the data is broken into phonological awareness, phonics, high frequency words, vocabulary, comprehension, literature, and expository text. In the areas of math, the information is broken down into number and operations, algebra and algebraic thinking, measurement and data, and then geometry. So this information allows us to see which areas specifically are our students doing well in, which areas do we need to continue to refine, and that's the work that guides our instructional practices. If you take a look at this slide, our team concluded that phonological awareness and high frequency words, those 2 particular domains, are our areas of strengths, the GLOWs, while phonics and vocabulary are areas of growth. The team concluded that phonics and vocabulary are the barriers for comprehension in literature and expository text. And so right now the team identified here are the areas that we want to specifically start focusing on. Next slide shows the same information but for math. So our team concluded that we have a large percentage of students who are sitting at that 1 grade level below that yellow band area. The important thing about all of this data is that the goal is for our teachers to be able to make strategic instructional decisions so that we could implement Tier 1 classroom strategies along with additional interventions as needed based on the needs of our students. A part of the data protocol that we go through consists of reflecting on the implications of this data. What are the implications if we don't address the observations that we're making? What are the prereq skills that our students need? What additional information do we need to make better choices, better instructional decisions? So after diagnostic number 1, our team concluded that phonics and vocabulary are the gateway skills necessary for comprehension, areas we need to address. For math, the data suggested that students needed time to develop their mathematical mindset and see math in the world around them. Therefore, we provided Tier 1 instructional strategies to be implemented in grades TK through 6, along with interventions. The now what portion of the data protocol consists of creating goals, which we've done as a site, so as a whole school site, along with grade level teams. It's important to note that iReady is one data point. It's one piece to the puzzle when we're identifying the needs of the students that we serve. There's multiple factors that need to be taken into consideration when making instructional decisions, and multiple data points. Multiple data points can consist of the oral reading fluencies that our teachers administer. iReady is a computer. Oral reading fluencies are with that expert teacher, a real human. Attendance data comes into play, behavioral, social, emotional. And then at the end of the day, some kids are just not good test takers. And so the expert teachers would be the ones who know that. And so when we're looking at these goals and creating very specific plans for students, that information is critical. We're working with real humans, not robots, and real humans are complex. So I'm hoping that your takeaway from this presentation is that the work that's being led by Mike Jordan and Becky Lawson at the district level during our data culture PLCs is helping build leadership capacity to help define and narrow our focus at the site level. It's important to note that investing in our teachers is an investment in our children. The professional learning opportunities being provided are helping our teachers to refine their craft. It's critical for instruction to be purposeful and intentional based on the needs of the students. The other important component to all of this work is our district-wide multi-tiered systems of support, the MTSS framework. And that framework helps us develop, implement, and evaluate a multi-tiered approach for students who are not meeting the grade level expectations. And that whole thing could be a presentation on its own. The iReady data points are a piece of the puzzle, and information we use to help drive our instruction so that we could be intentional and strategic in changing the predictable outcomes for our children. And if you want to see the data protocol in place, we'll be running our PLCs in January. You're more than welcome to come join us. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So what we wanted to do is give you an idea. When you see the iReady that we're doing, the window is open. Every school site is going through this protocol, and this is a protocol we got from the Sacramento County Office of Education, who's been working with us. We're spending countless hours at the district level and at the site level to look at the data, analyze the data, and come up with that now what part, which is what are we going to do as a result of this data. Those countless hours, it's hard to give justice in an 8-minute presentation of all the work and what happens and so on. But I would encourage you, as Parveen said, please come out to a school site and see them go through the process and see what the results are. It's one thing to really look at just the data points, but to see what comes of that iReady data, it's impressive. The teachers, the administrators at the school site, my hat's off to them. They are doing tremendous work.
I have a comment. I did tour Oak Hill and spoke in depth with Miss Oliver, who broke down this information when we toured the intervention classrooms. So they took this data and went down to individual students, and they could take that student and know exactly what they need help in. And so they take the intervention class and work on that. I mean, she explained it in detail. It was just amazing. And same thing with Dudley. We did the same thing with Miss Limoges. She had this awesome spreadsheet, and she could point at students in classrooms, and this is where they need, work on. This certain individual needs help in this area.
It's
Quite
impressive.
Quite impressive to the student. No, it's yes, yeah.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, they're working tremendously hard.
Yeah, they are.
And sometimes, we get these test scores and it feels like nothing's happening with them, but it is truly movement and instruction and movement in what we're doing with students. once we get these in, we go through that whole process.
And I agree, if you can, go to the school sites and talk to the administrators. Go see for yourself, it's amazing.
These were the actual slides off of the data culture meeting when they come together. So, and thank you. You did a great job.
Yeah, thank you, Parveen.
And I have a question about how often do the PLCs meet? It's great to hear that they're happening. How often do these groups get together?
So the idea is every Monday when we have the early out day to meet. Now sometimes things come up and you can't do a PLC every Monday, but they are meeting all the time. Parveen, can you answer it for Oakville?
I love PLC work, so this is, yeah, totally my gig. We just had a attendance PLC this morning. And so the goal is, the fresher the data is, that's when you want to meet as close as possible to it, so that you could go through this process, come up with plans, and have some actions along with goals, so that you can start monitoring progress and implementing.
Awesome. Thank you.
Ms. Denise, could you please share your slides with the board?
Oh, absolutely.
I would appreciate that.
Not a problem.
Thank you, ma'am.
Any other questions, you guys?
I have a question for Mr. Jordan. You did mention that these results don't include students in the AP and honors courses. And I'm just curious, what percentage of our students are enrolled in there, and what are the demographics in that student population?
I can bring you those results back. Most of those are juniors and seniors. Many of them are seniors, and that's why we don't have them test, because the intervention, they're seniors, they're graduating.
Yes.
They're moving on.
If you're in an AP class at Center High School, can you stand up real quick? Don't be embarrassed, stand up. These kids, there they are.
Thank you.
Now, there is
That's
some
awesome.
live data, the demographics of the AP and how many students are in AP classes.
Awesome. So I think this is great to hear about, because it concerns me greatly that when we look at the ELA scores, for example, 80% of the students are checking in at below grade level in our district. And then I was looking at the low-income students, and some concerns there with the disparities between non-low-income and low-income students, and again with English language learners and not English language learners. There's a lot of questions that I have about English and math. I mean, with 62% of our black students being, more than 2 grade levels behind. Same with our American Indian students. I just hope to see more about the PLCs and what is being done, even in the plans, to target those groups and support the students who are clearly struggling at large numbers in our district and have been for some time.
So our last data culture meeting, we were looking through data. Our emphasis was on our English language learner population. That's what we were really focusing on. What are we going to do? Really narrowing it down.
Great, that's wonderful.
And I can go on AP Central, is the name of the website. I can find out the exact demographics. I just don't have them memorized for AP.
Yes, thank you. I know, right?
As I'm looking at the data, not just in the iReady, but some of the other data, like in the SPSAs and such, it does concern me when I see something like 11% of the population is achieving at or above level. That's a startling number, but it's very important to remember that this is post-COVID times, and there are a lot of things happening that are affecting that. And I love that Ms. Sain said, the iReady is one data point. It's not everything. It's just one point. I personally know I have a son-in-law who cannot test for the life of him. And so I know that is also a real thing. So I don't know. If anybody out there in the community is listening and worried about those numbers, just keep in mind that like Parveen said, there's a lot of things going into those numbers. And they're doing everything and anything they can to address them. So,
And
thank
it's just
you.
not a concern. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No.
And it's just not a concern within Center. This is nationwide.
Yeah.
All this. It's just not a Center issue. So
Yeah.
just to make that clear.
We need to continue to focus on what we can control.
What we
And
can
so
do.
We have an opportunity to make a difference, and so I appreciate all the comments that we're hearing. And I have to echo and thank Ms. Sains for her description, because it's happening at all of our school sites. it's not just her or Oak Hill that's doing it. And Mr. Jordan and Ms. Lawson's leadership around this has been fantastic. It's hard work. It's a lot of work, but we're seeing some results, and we're not settling until we can keep pushing forward. So we appreciate the board's support on that too, and not just, oh, we're good, because we're not good. We owe it to our community to keep pushing and pushing and pushing. That's what we're doing.
And
The
yeah.
work is never finished. We're not, no district's gonna be at 100%.
And it's
but you
gonna-
keep pushing to try and get to it.
Yeah, well, and it's going to
Sooner-
change every year.
But the push is there.
Good.
We're constantly going through this process, trying to figure out how can we get better? What can we do? What can we do?
Thank you.
Any other questions before we move on to the other topic? Okay, so the Panorama Family Survey results.
All right, you're gonna charge me rent if I'm up here much longer. So we have a couple of different surveys that went out. We're gonna go through a very similar process with our school sites with this data as well, because it is broken down to the school site level as well. We've just been working on that's what this is, on iReady and those other things. We just haven't had a chance to get to there yet. So I can come back at a later time and show you the breakdown there. But I wanted to give you some of the survey information that we have so far. So this just came out last week. We are with a consulting firm called the Sounding Board. It's a marketing and communications, and we're really analyzing what are we doing communications-wise within the district and how can we improve. So this is the data we got back so far, and I don't know that you have the full report of this yet because literally it just came out in the last couple of weeks. You want to be at least in the blue, red, or is that yellow, or whatever color
Gold.
Gold? Is that gold? Okay.
Yeah.
And so you can see on the first one, overall satisfaction with communication from school districts. So this was a survey that went out to parents. You want to be at least in those top three, average, very good, or excellent. Blue is the excellent category. Overall rating for my perception of the school district based on the communication I received. And again, positive results. That doesn't discount. There are some green, whatever color, purple, I guess that is, and blue. We want to reach out to those families and find out what can we do to make things better.
Before you move on, I see the legend up top for everything except the light blue. What does that represent?
The light blue
there's
is
a page
actually
two.
NA. It's
Okay.
they had no opinion one
Oh,
way
okay.
or the other. But still, if you have no opinion, I kind of take that as why don't you have, obviously communication wasn't great. What can we do?
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
How many respondents did we have to the survey? Do we
This
have
one
that?
had 78. The next one I'm going to show had 250 plus or minus. It'll say on the slide. Oops, I skipped ahead. We did that. I'm able to understand the communication I received from a child's school. Again, we're looking for those three blue, red, or gold. Perceived communication from a child's school to be accurate. So for at least from these 78, now that's 78 out of 4,000, but those are the 78 that responded. We're getting some ideas of what we can do. And I'm not going to read through each of these, but I will share you electronically. But I do want to get to, people said, how is the best way to communicate with us? And I think that's the biggest piece, and that's this slide right here. This is their preference. How does a district communicate? And you can see the number one is email. People want email. That's what they're going to listen to. That's what they're going to read. Automated text messages is next. They're saying that's our best forms of communication. And then it'll go down to district website. You only have about 21%, 1 out of 5, a little over 1 out of 5. Are going to be looking at that website for information. And then you can see it goes down. School calendar, digital and other, and there's actually Board of Education meetings, district meetings, social media, so on and so forth. But by far, families, that at least on this survey of these 78, said email and text is where they're going to get their information. So we are working with this consultant that's going to help us with a strategy, a plan, communication-wise. And these, at least right now, are two things obviously we were going to want to focus in on.
It's interesting that 33% or I guess the third way of communication is through printed notices.
Right, that's kind of the old school.
In my
Yep.
household, those printed notices never made it into my hands. They were shoved in the bottom of a backpack and never saw the light of day. So that's just surprising to me.
I think that's the advantage of the emails.
Yeah.
And I really thought social media would be higher, to be honest. And it wasn't.
Nope.
15%.
Because it's
That was
an
surprising.
active. You have to actively go and search for it. Whereas email, you're looking at your email pretty much every day. So it's less difficult.
We okay to move on? Okay. Then this is from our Panorama Family Survey. This came out, we got our results back just again about a month ago, 4 weeks ago. There were 259 respondents, and I'm just giving you the breakdown of who responded. So you have an idea of the demographic wise who responded. So you can say it was 89% of the respondents were female, 84% of those were categorizing themselves as mothers. And this is, they checked off which of these categories they were. 51% white, 13 Hispanic, 14% said 2 or more ethnicities or races, 8% Asian, 5% African American, and all of the respondent groups were below the 5% threshold. 89% of those were English language, English only, primary language, 4% Russian, 3% Spanish, 4% other, or chose multiple.
I have a question about that, Mr. Jordan. Because our district, our demographics for our student population look very different than the folks who responded.
true.
And so I'm curious about how can we reach the people who are reflective of our district, and how can we reach also more ELL parents, because that's an area that we need to work on and improve. And if we're not hearing from those populations about what they need, and we're just running with what the 51% of white respondents and 89% of English-only respondents say, then are we really doing the best service?
Right, and that's where this communication consultant comes in, the first slides that we looked at. How can we better communicate with everybody? How can we get the message out there? How can we get their message back or their information back? And that, I'm not going to speak for you, but I think that's the key to this marketing person, this marketing consultant who's very good. She's going to help us build a plan to do that.
Because we need to hear more voices. And that I think that's what you're getting at, is we're
Yes.
hearing a few
Absolutely.
voices. We want to hear more so we can get to the process where we're analyzing our PLCs to drive down to figure out how do we reach, how do we engage, how do we bring more folks in than we are. Because when we do that, we're going to be even better.
Was the
Absolutely.
Panorama an electronic survey? Is it electronic, or how
It
was
is.
that?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
So maybe can it be administered in other modalities? Perhaps when we have, some of the parents on campus, a paper survey where they're right there, or even a laptop that they could log into with assistance or something of that nature. Would that even be feasible?
Yeah, so we brainstormed some different ways to do it, such as we had the food, not drive, but the food pickup today. Maybe we can catch people there. What are some different ways to do it?
Okay.
And also translations, that's the other big
Yes.
piece.
Yeah.
And we're happy we're getting some responses, but we know it's not reflective of the demographic. And so we're happy we're getting some, but it's like, how do we get more? And also in the first communication survey, we found some of our families who are non-English speaking preferred print. They didn't want the electronic. So we just learned that last week. So that's something we're thinking, how can we get that out when we do DLAC meeting, whatever we need to do to connect. So.
Awesome.
And so what is the next steps? So the protocol you saw with the iReady is going to be similar with this data. How can we improve at the school site level? Because we have this broken down school site to school site, because it may be different from Oak Hill to Center High. I'm just picking two schools. I'm not picking, just picking out random. It's going to be different. So that's what we're going to do, is going through it. Okay, now how can we better improve at the site level?
And one more thing, and I'm going to probably reiterate what Mr. Jordan just said, but this process that he explained for iReady, the data protocol, is the PLC culture we've created at a district level, which we meet twice a month. Last Thursday, Mr. Barassi, who replaced Mr. Jackson, we're going through engagement and we're looking specifically at attendance through everyday labs. And next month he'll come back and talk about what we've done. But the schools actually left with goals that they were focusing on around engagement as a result of attendance. So this protocol is this shell, and then we're kind of, I mean, this sounds weird, but we're dumping the data in there and then creating plans or strategic avenues to try and get at it. Instead of just going, oh, we think this or we feel this, we actually have a lot of data, probably too much in some cases, to sort through to create that plan to help. And when you put it all together, it's going to take some time, but we'll get there. And I think we're going to do incredible things for our community. Sorry.
Yeah, the objective is to try and keep getting better in everything. Good?
You're always looking at me. What is it about? Do I ask too many questions? I don't know.
Okay,
Good job, Mike, thank you.
Thank you,
thank
Mike.
you very much.
Thank you.
So, moving on, we have committee updates. Facilities update with Richard Putnam.
Good evening, Okay. Good evening, board. Not a whole lot to bring you up on other than the fact that both Rex Fortune and our CTE projects are still ahead of schedule. The CTE project will be dried in roof-wise by the end of this week. So we have the underlayment, so that pretty much creates a waterproof roof before we even get our final roofing material put on. So that will help to keep the process going even as we go into the wet winter months. And that's where we are right now. Any questions?
Looks like you're doing a good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Putnam.
Okay. Do we have comments from the audience regarding items not on the agenda? Nothing? Oh. Okay.
I have C. Connor online, and C. Connor, could you please unmute your mic?
Good evening, Superintendent and board members. And I would like to say good luck to the seniors who are in the AP classes. My call is in regards to, number one, I would like for bullying to be on the school agenda. If you could put that on the board agenda. And I think we need to do some in-depth research in regards to this issue, given what just happened at the University of Virginia. Also, I wanted to talk about school spirit. From my experience with the Center District, I'm not finding very much of that. And I think that it's very important. And it also shows it can go a long way in terms of the social and emotional well-being of the students, faculty, and staff. I think from my own experience, schools that have high school spirit, overall, the students do well. And I was interested in some of the comments that were made at the previous presentation. And from my experience, I think that one of the ways perhaps you would consider some of the teachers, recruiting good teachers, is to go into some of the universities that are in your areas and perhaps recruit for employment there, especially people who are science majors, who are math majors, because I think it makes a tremendous amount of difference if you're going to teach someone algebra, which is the foundation of all higher mathematics. If you yourself are experienced with algebra and not just a multi-credential person, and it comes across much better in the classroom, and I think you're able to connect with students better when they can see, because they can see the difference when you know what you're doing and if you're just repeating the answers from the answer book. So, because I know I have friends that have gotten jobs because of the school districts that have done that. And also, I think that, yes, children do have learning styles, but instructors with good classroom management skills will be able to reach children. That has been proven with Joe Clark and Jaime Escalante. I mean, it was just unprecedented that the Latino students in East LA had to take their SAT tests, their SAT test again because they scored so high and they were from a low-income district.
Okay,
And so we still have
excuse me.
biases with us.
Excuse me, I just
And,
wanted to let you know your time is running out, so if you could wrap it up, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, and in the future, I would like to be able to see the clock so I would know that. But all that I'm trying to say is that perhaps the district can go and recruit people for certain disciplines from the universities that are in the system here. And let's put bullying on the agenda for the next meeting. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. And
Scott, can I address that just really quick and say that we have done that many, many times. We've gone to the different colleges of
Do we address public comments?
We cannot.
so, we should look at how to make the clock more visible, though. So, thank you very much. Any other public comments on items not on the agenda? Okay, consent agenda. Do I have a motion on this?
I'll motion to approve the consent agendas.
Okay,
Second?
okay. So, Mr. Ryan?
Aye.
Trustee Lee?
Aye.
Trustee Anderson?
Aye.
Trustee Kelly?
Aye.
Trustee Pope?
Aye.
And chair votes aye.
Could I just make a little comment?
Okay.
on the
Sure.
consent agenda. I'd like to thank the school sites, site councils, and the parent groups for submitting your school plan for student achievement. I find them fascinating, especially with the iReady information that we had, and then with our LCAP that coincides with everything. I just wanted to say thank you, and I read every one of them. And that was it. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Bruno, can I just add one more? I think I died. Just acknowledging that the board's action there just also named the next principal for Rex Fortune Elementary, and he is in the room.
yes.
So we congratulate Mr. Farrell in the back. He'll be moving from North Country, transferring. And just so others in the room are, Ms. Siebert, who is the vice principal, we're moving to interim principal there. And then there she is. There she is. And so I just want to acknowledge that board action. It's a big deal when we open a new school, and so it's a lot of responsibility. And I appreciate, and I know Mr. Farrell appreciates the trust that the board's putting in him to do an outstanding job. So just want to make that acknowledgement.
And no pressure. No pressure.
Okay, moving on to business item A, board policy, bylaw, and norms review. I will make a motion to bring this to the floor for discussion.
I'll second.
Okay. Just to give a little bit of background here, bylaw, board policy 1313 and bylaw 9005 address the civility and governance standards by which we conduct ourselves. And I feel like we've been kind of moving away from these. So since I believe that we should be following our policies and bylaws, the question I want to pose to the rest of the board is, do we need to change these? Do we want to remove these policies, or do we want to start following them?
Is that a question?
Yes.
I would say
frankly.
start following. Continue to follow.
Yeah, I would think start following it, and especially keeping the district focused on learning and achievement for all students at the forefront, which is number one in every item in bylaw 9005. And I think when we move away from that, things become problematic when we're not focusing on learning and achievement for all students.
Okay. Does anyone want to propose any changes to this? Okay, then I guess this item is closed, unless there's any further. motions on this? Okay. Business item B, reconsideration of rescinding board member residency verification portion of bylaw 9220 governing board elections. Do I have a motion on this item?
I'll motion to bring it to the floor for
Wait,
discussion.
I'm sorry. Before we move on, I apologize. Were there any public comments on business item A before we move on? Okay, moving on to business item B, we have a motion to do what?
Bring it to the floor for discussion.
Okay, and do I have a second? Okay. So this was brought up at our last meeting, a request to rescind the board residency verification portion of board bylaw 9220. Do we have any public comments on this issue? Okay. Before we begin the discussion, I've asked to have Scott Holbrook, the district's lawyer here, because at the last meeting, there were claims that this policy and the way we implemented it were illegal, so I wanted to clarify that. Scott, are you with us?
Good evening. Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
See me?
So before we go into a discussion, can you address the legality and our authority to enact such a bylaw?
Sure. The board has general authority under Education Code 35160 to act in any manner that is not inconsistent with or preempted by any law. And the legislature, in adopting Education Code 35160.1, has mandated that authority be liberally construed. So the board does have broad authority to enact policies, to govern and guide its procedures and its members, so long as they're not inconsistent with or preempted by law.
Okay, and would you say that this policy is inconsistent with or preempted by any laws?
No, I'm not aware of any law that would prohibit the board from adopting or revising its board bylaw to reflect a verification requirement of member trustees. It appears to be applied to all trustees equally. There is a process to comply with the policy revision that allows for reasonable notice. There are exceptions in applying to the policy. It respects the confidentiality of the information sought and provided. In my opinion, it's not preempted by any law or inconsistent with any law. It's entirely within the board's discretion to adopt a revision to that policy, so long as that action was compliant with the Brown Act, meaning that it was properly agendized and noticed at a public meeting, and action was taken by a majority of the board at that public meeting, which is my understanding as to how the action occurred.
Okay, so in your opinion, we did nothing illegal?
Correct.
Okay, thank you very much. Just wanted to address that right off the bat. Any other discussion on this item?
I have a comment about what was just stated. The problem was never with the process. The problem is the bylaw itself and the potential legality of it, and whether we have the authority to modify elections codes and election code and education code. And in that, I did follow up with elections codes from Placer County as well as Sacramento County. And they advised, that they hadn't heard of any boards having such policies and that they don't have authority over that. And that if there was a question about the residency of any duly elected board member or appointed board member, there is a process, a legal process that should be engaged in. And that is the remedy not to create a local board policy to police one another and check and verify if a board member actually resides in an area or not, but if there was an authentic concern about it, to engage in that legal process. So I think we're setting precedent that's wrong and immoral, and that's why I continue to stand in opposition to this board member residency verification policy. I don't think that it is helping to keep the district focused on the learning and achievement of all students, which is our primary charge, and it's very problematic. We're setting precedents, I believe, in all the wrong ways and all the wrong directions.
Could you please explain what you feel is immoral about it?
It's immoral to add additional qualifications upon a candidate who's been duly elected and has been sworn in and taken an oath of office that recognizes that they understand the responsibilities and duties of that office.
So
I find it very disrespectful to a governing board member to have them do additional qualification after they've already been elected and they've sworn and affirmed that they meet the qualifications and requirements. There's no need to do extra verification, and if someone's concerned, there's a remedy. It's to seek legal judgment.
do you acknowledge that it's a requirement to be a resident on an ongoing basis during the term? That's already a qualification set by education code.
I'm sorry, what was that? I didn't.
Do you acknowledge that the education code establishes that you must continue to be a resident to serve on the board?
Yes, and every duly elected board member knows that. They don't need to have a very paternalistic action from their fellow board members to check in and see if they're still in compliance with it. And if there's a genuine concern, there are legal avenues to pursue that someone could take up and challenge a board member's residency. We've seen board members recalled. We've seen board members removed when there were genuine concerns about those issues in the state of California. Nobody yet on our board has been able to, point out to me what other district in the state of California has such a policy. It hasn't been produced yet because it doesn't exist in California. So this is something we're trying to import as a local board from some other state, an idea, and I think it's a toxic idea, and I think the impact of it won't be positive.
It's not from another state, it's from my head, frankly.
Exactly.
And I happen to think that it's a flaw that other districts don't have it. It's not about the current board. It's about the system of the board as a whole. It is theoretically possible that a board member could move out of district and then not tell anyone and continue to serve on the board, which would be a violation of Ed Code. So in order to help reassure the public that that's not happening, we're not creating a qualification to serve. We are simply saying that we are going to verify with the superintendent that we continue to be residents, and then he's going to report that out to the public. We are not removing anybody if they don't reside within the district or if they don't comply with this. We're just like we have a board bylaw that says that our meetings will end at 9 o'clock, or we have board bylaws that say that we are going to be civil to each other, not interrupt, act with dignity. We have the authority. This is not modifying election code or Ed Code. We are just simply saying that we are going to show the superintendent evidence that we continue to be residents. It is within our authority to set such a policy. It's not illegal. It's not immoral, in my opinion. I don't understand what is the flaw in doing this, since theoretically, like I said, actually, let's back up. Shortly after I was appointed, we had 2 board members move out of the district boundaries. Okay? They both did what they were supposed to and resigned before moving. But if they hadn't, we would have no way of knowing. The public would have no way of And so this is just simply a way to reassure the public that we are continuing to comply with the requirements of our office.
And to that, President Bruno, I say the public hasn't asked you to do that. You admitted that this came from your head, and it's your idea.
No.
And only
No,
one
no.
public comment, and I'm being interrupted, and only one public comment supported it when it was enacted. I haven't heard a call from the public at all. I've only seen this coming from President Bruno and the board majority members. And I believe that it's not a right direction to turn our district in to be paternalistic for its board members. I don't think that's appropriate. I truly don't believe that this policy is helping to keep the district focused on learning and achievement for all students. And that's why, while you have the authority to do something, it doesn't mean that you should do something or that it's the right thing to do. And for me, this is the wrong thing to do. It's not going to increase student achievement. It doesn't assure anyone of anything except for a few folks who want to be overly paternalistic and police one another as board members. And I'm against that. If there's a concern, you follow the legal process and you take the steps that are established and known in the state of California to challenge that. Someone showing you something and showing you a paper proves nothing. It proves that they had a paper that was dated at that date, and they could still not reside in the district. So these comments that this is going to help us to ensure things for the public and so forth, I'm just not buying it at all. And I'm not buying the motive that's being stated based on what I've seen and what I've experienced.
Okay, Trustee Kelly, and then Trustee Anderson after.
First of all, I want to insist that you stop referring to a board majority, which does not exist, and it is insulting and unnecessary. Number one. Number two, this didn't come from the board. This came from concerns that were expressed through multiple board members from the community. And we, as a board, made the decision that we would re-verify our eligibility, our legal right to serve in this capacity. And we took all of the precautions that we felt we could in order to maintain confidentiality of that information. The fact that no other district does this is simply irrelevant. And we did reach out to the county registrar's office. That was one of the first things that the superintendent did. And they simply said, oh, we don't verify residency, period. They didn't say anything about judgments or anything else. Neither did our attorney, who I hope is still on the line. Neither did any of the other districts that we've spoken with. And so the fact that you've come up with this information is great. We will pursue that. But none of this is illegal, unethical, or immoral. It is our way of reassuring the community that we indeed are eligible to serve on the board.
Okay, Trustee Anderson.
Well, first off, I would like to say that
Can you speak into your microphone, please?
constituents, many
Speak
Can you
into your microphone.
please?
First, I would like to say I've had many constituents, many residents that have asked me if you do live in the district. And to be honest
Who's
with
the
you,
Please don't interrupt.
But who's you?
is it
Please,
not
please,
on?
please don't interrupt. Let her finish, then you'll get your turn, and it's your turn again. Is the microphone on?
Better?
Okay, yes.
I've had many constituents ask me if you actually live in the district. And I've had to tell them, I don't know, because she won't tell anybody where she lives. The problem is, with that, is you're required, not just the one time when you sign with the voter registrar's office, but for the entire length of the term to live within the boundaries of the district. I don't understand why showing two people at the head of the district is going to jeopardize anything for you. If you're trying to keep your address quiet, I don't know what the problem is behind that. Frankly, it's been the way you have reacted to it that has got everybody's suspicions up. That's what's causing all the questioning that's going on, is why are you so afraid to give anybody your address? if you look at the Attorney General's website and you do a search on their rulings for residency, you will find that this has happened many times in California, and they have been removed from office. So the correct way is not a recall. It's to ask the Attorney General for a right to sue, and then it goes on to the DA's office, and then they can force you into paying back all that money, because that money is public funds. And if it was collected when you lived outside the district, it gets paid back. Every vote that you are a part of is now in suspicion, and it has to be redone. So there are valid reasons behind people wanting to know if you are actually a legitimate board member. It's not just because we want to pick on Tabia. We spent 2 years now
Point of
trying
order.
to get
I'm
you
being
to
addressed
understand.
directly, and it's not appropriate
I'm sorry, I didn't
for
hear
an
that.
extended time.
I'm just trying to explain that nobody's trying to pick on you. This has all come about because of your actions.
All right, so I have some follow-up comments, and then you will have a turn as well.
Well, I would like a turn at this point
Well,
because
you-
I waited and listened
Yes,
patiently.
and I waited while you spoke, while she spoke, and she spoke, so now I'm going to speak again. and
I
then
will
you have a
finish
turn.
that with just saying we are obligated to pursue this for our constituents and for the people in our district. It's an obligation at this point.
So to address a few aspects of this. First of all, when I said this came from my head, there had been discussion about things, and this was the solution that I came up with, and then we revised it and made changes and came up with a policy together. As far as us being the only district in California that has such a policy, that may be true. I frankly am baffled that districts that have trustee areas don't do anything to make sure that the trustee still resides not only within their district, but within their trustee area. I actually find that incredibly surprising.
There are a couple of cases of that.
So the districts I've reached out to do not seem to do such a thing, but I see that as them dropping the ball, frankly. As far as this being immoral, unethical, as far as you questioning the motives of it, I have been consistent from the beginning with what my motives were. If you go back to any of the board meetings where we have discussed this, and if people would like to check the agenda packet, I have some comments on this, and it has YouTube links to each of the board meetings as well as the time code where it was discussed. At the last meeting, it was stated that there are videos, yes, and I have provided links to them. Students, cite your sources. I have been consistent from the beginning about why I wanted this policy. It's not about the board as it sits now. I'm not questioning any current board member's residency. I frankly believe that we all reside within district boundaries. This is for the theoretical case that may come up one day, and that we should put a plan in place now before it becomes an issue. I don't lock my door at night because I think someone's going to break in that night. I lock my door every night to build the habit so that if one night someone does happen to try to come in, it's already locked. So, Trustee Lee?
Yes, I want to comment on a few things because many things were directed towards me. Comments were made that there's not a board majority, and I just encourage you to look at the voting record of this board and to look at the discussions of this board, and you will see there's definitely, at this time, a board majority and a board minority dynamic. Second, I heard Trustee Bruno mention just now that we came up with the policy together. We would be all of us on the board. I never saw nor heard of this policy until 72 hours before it was introduced and agendized and published to the public. So I wasn't involved in crafting this policy together. The board majority was involved in that. And there may be some possible Brown Act violations there that we should investigate. Once again, I really am just going to stick with, I will not comply with this policy. As a civic servant, I'm a former civic education teacher. I taught my students when you feel something is incorrect or inappropriate, you should not comply with it, and you should speak against it. So that's why I continue to speak against this action, the way it was done, and again, to point the board members back to the remedy. If there's a genuine concern, your duty to the public is to seek legal judgment. Trustee Anderson addressed me several times with some personal attacks. I'm not going to address those because frankly it's irrelevant. This isn't about me. This isn't about her. It's about what's best for our community and whether our actions are in alignment with our board governance standards and whether we're keeping the district focused on learning and achievement for all students. This action doesn't advance that at all. And that's why I will continue to oppose it, and I absolutely will not comply with it. And I've requested it be rescinded for all of those reasons.
Okay, Trustee Kelly.
Yeah, so the fact that we can take some sort of legal action doesn't mean that we will. The intention of this board policy is to reassure the community. If a board member does not comply, then the community can take that however they so choose. My comment about not referring to us as a board majority is the fact that the way that we vote is not as a unit, but as individuals. That's why the whole point of having a school board of 5 or 7 members or 9 members, whatever it is to have varied opinions. We should never be a 5-0 vote 100% of the time. That's not the goal. That's not how it should be. And there have been many, many cases where that has not been a 4-1. It's not been a us against them situation. It's just not. I don't know. It's just not polite to say, oh, the board majority, like as if everybody else is against me. It's me against them. That is not the situation. It's all 5 of us contributing our own opinions and our own votes. And I'm offended by it, particularly since I very often agree with what Trustee Lee has to say and her issues that she brings up. I very frequently agree with them and vote for them. So I'm offended by it. And then as for Nancy's comments directed toward you, she was trying to reassure you that we are not picking on you, that this was something that we as a board felt we could do to reassure the community. And all of the revisions that were made to this board policy and the presentation of the initial draft, all of that was done in public at a public meeting, or at a meeting held in public, our meeting in public. And so, no, there were no Brown Act violations.
I have a response.
So I'm going to speak, Mr. Mason's going to speak, and then you can be after him. So regarding the baseless accusation of Brown Act violations, prior to this appearing on the agenda, only one other trustee besides me had any advance notice of it because I discussed it with another trustee. I said, hey, what do you think about this idea I have?
2 people.
So,
okay.
Yes, and 2 people are allowed to discuss things. When I say that we crafted it together, that's what we did in the meeting. In February 2022 meeting, for example, we had a vote about whether or not this should trigger automatic censure if someone doesn't comply. And if you remember, the outcome of that vote was 3-2 against an automatic censure, and you were in the board majority for that vote. But I will have to disagree with Trustee Kelly. I think there is a board majority dynamic going on at the moment in the majority of the board, while we may agree or disagree, work together cooperatively. And that's the board majority dynamic I see. As far as how we vote, if you look back at our December 2021 meeting, where Trustee Lee was absent, we had a vote go 2-2. We didn't agree. We frequently don't see eye to eye. But then we move on. And we decide to work together on the next issue. So, as far as an intention not to comply, if students disagree with the dress code and they want to wear a t-shirt to school that has an obscenity on it, they will get a warning, probably be asked to put something on over it, something like that. They do not have the authority to simply say, I disagree with the dress code, so I'm going to wear a shirt with an obscenity on it. And if they continue to do so, they are in violation of the school rules. Disagreeing with a rule does not give you grounds to simply ignore it. And I think to do so sets a bad example for the students. Mr. Mason?
As the student representative, I think as a board, it shouldn't be a board majority. It should be the board working together so we can go forward with students' education more. I had an idea if the address was put into a third-party person, so that way your address stays confidential, but the address is still verified. So that way, if the concern was the safety of your spouse or kids, that you would still be safe, and that would be a secret third-person party just verifying.
Can you clarify what you mean by a third party?
As a lawyer, or not as a lawyer, a lawyer looks at the address and verifies that the board rep does live in the district. So that way, it's not board members looking at each other's address.
To clarify, the policy is that the superintendent and one other district employee, not the board members, would be verified.
And the information is not maintained on file.
Yes,
It's
they
just
don't record the address, they
reviewed
just say,
and
yes,
report it
so-and-so
out.
showed me that they resided in it. But that would be another possibility as well, that we could have an outside third party do it. So, Trustee Lee, you had some additional comments?
Yes, I do. I find it most interesting how Trustee Kelly explains to me the intentions of Trustee Anderson, as though she's in her mind and understands what she's thinking.
She said it out loud that she was reassuring us.
And also, I'm just going to hearken to Representative John Lewis about our duty to cause good trouble and to disrupt wrongdoing at all times. It was suggested by Trustee Bruno that if there's a rule and you don't agree with it, you should comply with it anyways. If we had done that, we'd still be living in segregated societies, because in the civil rights era, folks would have followed the rule that was there, even though they knew it was wrong, but it's the rule, so we should follow it and be a good example. I don't agree with that philosophy, and I don't promote that kind of thinking with my students or with my community members or constituents. Social change happens and social transformation happens from people resisting and refusing to comply with things that they find immoral or unethical. Some of our board members don't find this immoral or unethical, so they'll comply with it. I, on the other hand, I find it immoral, unethical, and I think it's setting a wrong precedent for school board governance in the state of California, and I want no part of that. So I will continue to not comply, and if you are a student who sees a rule or a law that is unjust and that doesn't sit right with you morally, I say you have a duty to not comply with it and to make noise about it.
Can you
I call the
explain-
question.
Okay, one moment. Can you explain what is unjust about a policy where we show that we are in compliance with the rules and is applied equally and fairly to everyone?
It's wrong in principle. It sets a wrong precedent. It doesn't align with our board policy to focus on in the learning and achievement for all of our students. It has nothing to do with that. And so therefore, I find it to be immoral and inappropriate. And I heard a call for the question, and I'd like to call for the question and the vote as well.
Okay.
There isn't an action item on the table at this point, Mr. President.
So did someone want to make an action?
I just called for the vote. I'd like to call
Okay,
for a vote.
What's the vote you're calling for?
about the reconsideration of rescinding the board member residency verification.
you're
I'm
asking-
asking us to do a roll call vote on this topic.
So you're
So we'll
asking us
need
to recall, to remove that portion of the board policy.
So we need a motion.
Okay, so she's making the motion. Do I have a second on this motion?
I'll second it.
Okay. Trustee Lee? Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Mason? So
We're
was-
voting to rescind.
So the motion is to rescind the board member residency verification portion of Board Bylaw 9220.
Meaning if I say aye, I'm wanting to rescind it?
Yes.
Nay.
Okay. Trustee Lee?
Aye.
Trustee Anderson?
No.
Trustee Kelly?
No.
Trustee Pope?
No.
And the chair votes no. Motion failed. Okay.
I think we had a public comment online, didn't we?
The time for public comments had passed on that.
Never happened
No, I did ask for public comments at the beginning.
on that?
Yes,
Yeah.
before we spoke with Scott. Okay,
So,
Yes,
Yeah,
no,
you
you
did.
did.
Yes, I
Yeah,
did.
you did.
okay.
okay, moving on to item C. Resolution of the Board of Trustees of Center Joint Unified School District authoring the issuance and sale of its general obligation bonds, election of 2008 Series 2022C in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $14 million and approving certain other matters relating to said bonds. Wow, that's a mouthful.
Move to approve.
Okay, and do I have a second on this motion?
I'll second.
Okay, Superintendent Laird, would you like to give us an overview?
Yeah, I can. Yes. So as we spoke last meeting, Kushru Gayer, who was our consultant with CFW, talked about the opportunity for us to capitalize on some accessible bond funds that we could use to finish the phase 2 of Rex Fortune Elementary, and so. With that, this will give us the authorization to go into the market and end up looking at issuing bonds to bring back to that purpose.
Okay, are there any public comments on this item? Okay, any discussion? Okay, let's take a vote. Mr. Mason?
Aye.
Trustee Lee?
Aye.
Trustee Anderson?
Aye.
Trustee Kelly?
Aye.
Trustee Pope?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Approved. Okay, item D, second reading, policies, regulations, and exhibits.
Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Yes, you have overlooked my hand that is raised for public comment.
On which issue?
Well, you went to C, but I want to go back to B under the ADA because I was not in attendance of your meeting last month. But
Okay.
more importantly, I think there is a Brown Act violation because your page that shows the link does not have the information that's what's on your agenda with it, and that should be there simultaneously, and that is stated in the Brown Act. I am very familiar with that because I've sued on it.
I'm sorry, which
I
link?
can repeat it. I can repeat it again for you. I want to comment on B, reconsideration for rescinding board member residency. On your page for the district, you have a separate page for an agenda, which was not explained to me by Carol Hunt, and you have a page where you have where the link is going to be for Zoom. Where the link for Zoom is, you do not have a link for the agenda of your meeting. That should also be there under the Brown Act. That would be a violation for me as a person who is legally disabled. I should not have to go to multiple pages to look for your agenda. And I did not see what your agenda was until the meeting began. And because I did not know what your agenda was, I could not speak when you asked me to. Number one, I should have been asked after the discussion because you talked about the item. And number two, because I was not present, so I did not know what the item was actually about. And furthermore, since I have stayed with you since the beginning of the meeting, it shows that I am trying to advocate on my right to speak at a public meeting under the Brown Act.
Okay, to be clear, the board agenda was posted in advance of the meeting as.
Excuse me, sir. Excuse me.
Please don't interrupt.
No,
You
I'm
will
going
have
to
your chance
interrupt
to
you here
speak after I
because
am done.
I am legally
Could you please
disabled.
mute her? Thank you. As I said,
Could
the
you
board
please
agenda.
give the same
Please
respect
do
to this
not
speaker
interrupt
that you
me.
gave to other
Please
speakers?
don't interrupt me.
Point of comfort, sir.
Okay.
Could you please give
I
this
am-
speaker the same respect that
I
you
am
allowed someone to
giving her
speak for
this-
6 minutes
Yes.
previously?
I
Let
am-
this woman speak.
Excuse me, please let me finish. You didn't want to rescind the civility board policy, so please follow it.
You're
for a
being
change.
uncivil to this public
Now,
commenter.
as I was saying, our board agenda was posted in advance of the meeting, as is our legal obligation. We do public comments at the beginning of an agenda item before the board discussion. However, that being said, we also have a district history of being somewhat flexible with these things, especially when someone has technological difficulties. So, I don't believe it to be a Brown Act violation, but as a courtesy, and because I like to hear from the public, I would like to permit this person to speak.
Mr. Bruno, though, could you explain to the public so they know that we're not in violation of the Brown Act, where exactly the agenda is and where the Zoom link is?
Okay, I don't have it in front of me at the moment. Can you please explain?
Yeah,
So
so
it
if you go on to on the very front page, it says board live stream. You click on that, it gives you all the information for the live stream. To the left of that, it says board meetings. That takes you to all the agendas that were properly posted. Actually, this time, more than 72 hours in advance of the meeting.
And
And
additionally, there's the board packet available as well.
But
Yeah,
also on the homepage of the district website, you'll scroll down and it says CJUSD live stream, and above that, there's a link to the board agenda. And there's the board packet with all the backup.
So
the
as
right-
I
So there's
said,
multiple areas where you can get
so
the agenda.
as I said, we met our legal obligations, but we also do have a district culture of being somewhat flexible, and so I would like to hear from the public. So even though we've already voted on that, I would like to hear the public comment on this issue.
We'll need to unmute her.
So could you please unmute her so she can speak now?
Can I also have the clock, please, so that I can see my time?
Is that good?
Well, I'm not able to see. You don't have the apparatus where you have the time for the viewer to see how long it is that they've been speaking?
We have the clock here. We don't have anything online. Would it be possible to zoom in on the clock more so she could see it better? Because looking at the TV, I can't read the clock from here.
Okay, well, that's something we need to take up at another time.
I would
And
agree. Thank you for
I
the
appreciate
suggestion.
the opportunity to comment on this issue. And it's very disheartening because one of the things is you're setting an example for your students that are there with you tonight. All right, I can see the clock now. Hello?
Yes.
Okay. Well, as I've already said, it's very disheartening, the subject that you're discussing tonight. And your students are there with you. So as I have listened, me, as a person of color, it is reminiscent of Jim Crow era tactics. And as a parent who has been very involved in many things, and these parents, whoever they are, if they are so concerned about the address of a particular trustee, I would like to encourage these parents to run for the Board of Trustees. I have always been in the mindset that you should have a child in the district to even be on the board. That's just my personal philosophy. A lot of times that's not even the case. And so to see this issue being persistent in your board, I have an idea of how the issues I have run into with some of the teachers in your school, and even in dealing with the principals. in the district. And they are, in my experience, 1950s era before Brown versus Board of Topeka. So now I am seeing there is perhaps a very serious issue in the district. And it is a race issue in your district. And here we are in the 21st century dealing with this issue. I appreciate the fact and that you have this item on the agenda, but for the amount of time that you have spent on this issue, you have taken away from other items on the agenda, and you have taken away from your students. And there are so many other things that can be done if it is on behalf of all students. And I am not getting that from this board. You either have it or you don't, or you're going to be left behind. And once again, I said there are some issues in how this is posted. I will forward you that in a letter, but there are some possible Brown violations. I will look through my book tonight and quote where I think there are violations on how the link to your link was even changed today, because your website said it was the link for the October meeting. So had I not even called Ms. Hunt, I wouldn't have been aware this was the same link. I will follow up with a letter. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, returning to business item D. Second reading, policies, regulations, and exhibits. Do I have a motion on this?
Move to approve as a complete package.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay.
Just to acknowledge, I know last meeting there were some edits, so we did make those edits, and those are reflected in there. So just wanted to make sure the board knew that.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Do we have any public comment on this issue? Okay, any discussion on this? Okay, then let's do a vote. Mr. Mason?
Aye.
Trustee Lee?
Aye.
Trustee Anderson? Aye. Trustee Kelly?
Aye.
Trustee Pope?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Approved. Okay. Future safety, item E, future safety board update. Do I have a motion on this item?
A motion to bring it to the floor for discussion.
Okay, and do I have a second on this item?
I'll second.
Okay, Superintendent Laird?
I think this item came back. The board had been talking about what content that the board would like to hear back from our law enforcement support. We work with Twin Rivers. We have a SRO contract with them, and also security in the evenings and stuff like that for the facilities. So what we were asking was what particularly would the board want from that? I know I went back in previous agendas. I know it was referenced that when we contracted with Sac Sheriff's department that they would present. I did find one presentation where they came and updated the board on the SRO and the SRO duties. And then I know we had a previous SRO who every once in a while would come to the meetings. He was the Center High SRO, would come to the meetings and talk about things going on. So one of the things I know we shared back in, I believe it was September or August, Mr. Barassi talked about some of the security, safety measures we have in place. So what we're looking for would be guidance from the board as to, with a report, what would you like from us? Our safety plans come out in March. I believe it's March agenda. And that talks a lot about it. But if there's something more, we're happy. I'm happy to have Twin Rivers bring their lieutenant or someone in, talk about the SRO program, what it looks like. They could talk about different calls they go on. They don't do, Twin Rivers does not cover the neighborhoods. Sac Sheriff did cover the neighborhoods, so they would be referencing any calls and stuff like that they had. But we're just looking for guidance, I guess, in this item.
Wonder if the board agrees, have the Safe School officer talk about how they enhance or how they work with our safety team?
So what I could do is put together a report where we review briefly the different measures. Because we can always do more. But we do have a lot of different things that we do implement, and we're constantly looking at that. The piece we did not bring into the last presentation was the SRO piece. I would probably bring either the lieutenant or our sergeant who's been familiar with the district for a while, have him or her speak with the board, see if there's any questions. happy to arrange that. If that, I mean, I'm just looking for the guidance of what you all wanted, because we did go over pretty extensively drills and all of that.
So before we get into discussion, are there any public comments on this issue? No? Let's hope a certain person might be online who want to speak up. Okay. Any further discussion on this? Or?
I would like to hear about, you know, sorry, my mind just went blank. You know, like what's happening as far as drugs, what's changed, what things are being seen, what's prevalent.
And you're speaking more to what's out there in the at large, not
At large, not
to
necessarily at our,
okay.
with our students, but just to be aware of, you know, what's out there and what's on, you know, what's on the streets,
Okay.
so to speak.
I can arrange that.
I have some concerns just because of what's going on in the news about, you know, wanting to address school physical safety. I think it might be good to update us periodically, not necessarily on a monthly basis, but just, you know, frankly, I'm feeling a little torn. On one hand, it's nice to be transparent and discuss what we're doing to keep kids safe. On the other hand, the more you reveal, the easier it is for someone to find the holes in it. So,
And maybe a first start would be have an overview with the SROs in conjunction with our planning, and then see if that leads to further conversation. Because I know comments last meeting, we talked about different fencing and stuff like that, and myself and I talked with maintenance about making sure some of the fencing is. We have one fence that gets cut quite frequently, but we also have one of our maintenance people who check it almost daily, and then well, I can.
Keep talking to your microphone,
Nancy,
please.
your
Mrs.
microphone?
Anderson, thank you. It's okay.
I'd like to have them cover the gangs in the area, what's going on with that, and the homeless situation.
So they don't, but it's different because they're not SAC sheriffs, so they aren't community patroller. I mean, they work, the SRO works for us. They don't go on outside calls. I'm not saying they don't know it, but I don't know if they're the actual authority that would be able to give us a
Yeah,
full
I hear
picture.
you. Okay.
But certainly we do have calls when encampments or homeless are camping near our schools. They'll work, and they'll also then contact SAC sheriff and work with us. But if we get them an overview, and then it might dive in, and maybe they have specialists that can come out and share some things.
Maybe they could just tell us what's going on with the plan there, because I'm not sure where it stands right now.
And that might be a different conversation with a different agency, just because originally SAC sheriff, you know, they had a broader scope. Twin River is focused on school police.
Oh, we could invite them too.
Any further discussion? Okay, and we don't need to take an action. You're just
No, I just look for direction. So I'll work with them to see, and I'll get it either December or January meeting, just to have them come and give an overview. I just don't want to commit to something when I don't know their schedule.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay, there we are. Item F, schedule annual organizational meeting of the board. Do I have a motion on this item?
A motion to bring it to the floor for discussion.
Okay, and do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Superintendent Laird, do you want to give a brief overview?
Yeah, so all this is as the board's aware, in December, the board will need to select their officers, president, clerk, board representative. And so this action actually just places it so it becomes placed on the agenda. So there would be the organizational meeting for that time. So all your action tonight is doing is saying, yes, we want it on the December 14th meeting. And that falls within the window that's allowed.
Okay. Any public comments on this item? I'm not surprised.
When's the last day they can issue results?
I'm not sure.
It's
But
yeah, the new second Friday in December is when the new individual will take office. So I think it's the first Friday that the results have to be finalized.
so
Are we clear in that? What was the date?
yeah,
the
because
meeting's December 14th, so we're well after that.
So, yeah.
Can I ask a popcorn question? If the meeting is December 14th and my term ends December 15th, then next month is my last meeting. Is that correct?
Your term ends the second Friday.
Second
So the-
Friday.
So basically the new individual, second Friday of.
Okay, so, and this is, okay,
This
so
would
no.
be the Wednesday after.
Wonderful, thank you.
Okay.
I don't want to be here. Just want to make sure.
Okay, any further discussion on this issue? Do I have a motion?
Move to approve?
Can you be more specific?
I'm sorry, move to approve item F, to schedule the annual organizational meeting of the board at the December regular board meeting.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right. So we'll do roll call vote. Mr. Mason?
Aye.
Trustee Lee?
Aye.
Trustee Anderson?
Aye.
Trustee Kelly?
Aye.
Trustee Pope?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Approved. Item G, CJUSD annual and 5-year developer fee report for fiscal year 21-22 and resolution number 6, 2022-23, adopting the findings contained in the 2021-22 developer fee reports.
Move
And
to
I
bring
would-
it to the
I
floor?
would-
Sorry. Move to bring it to the floor for discussion.
And do I have a second?
I'll second.
Can you second?
No.
Yeah, I know he can make.
Make motions,
You know what?
but-
I'll second. Just to be.
Just to be safe.
Okay.
We should look that up.
So I'll be Miss Coronado, who was unable to join us tonight. But this is just an annual certification we have to do. Section 66001 and 66006 of Government Code require that we report any developer fees that we receive. So this report that Ms. Coronado prepared is an overview of the developer fees and the planned expenditures of those impacts that are created by neighborhoods. So it's an annual report that comes forward. If you notice, I think it's about 8 million that we've accumulated over the last year. Pretty positive, but obviously when a residential neighborhood comes in, it has an impact that makes us need to build schools. So therefore, those monies go towards the creation and building of a new school or the upkeep of current schools. Other than that, we'd ask that you approve. But Lisa would be very happy with that.
Okay.
Move to
Any public
approve.
comments? Any board discussion? Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Okay. Mr. Mason?
Aye.
Trustee Lee?
Aye.
Trustee Anderson? Trustee Kelly?
Aye.
Trustee Pope?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Approved. Okay, moving on to student board representative reports. Mr. Mason?
So we had a Dia de los Muertos celebration on the 1st of this month, hosted by our Hispanic Youth Leadership Club, in which multiple board members came. And then at lunch on the 9th of this month, we had our Best Buddies Thankful Tree, where students write down all that they're thankful for. Football made it to the second round of playoffs and lost a tough game against Sonora, unfortunately, so our playoff hopes are done for football. Yesterday, Avid had their college and career fair at both lunches, where students made posters displaying information on different colleges they had researched, and different community colleges came, and as well as the Army recruiters and the police as well came. Our Powder Puff game is tomorrow at 6. We'll have a taco truck, we'll have churros, corn, and different clubs selling small little snacks like candy or popcorn. Everyone is super excited about their week off next week for Thanksgiving. In the upcoming months, we have our winter sports going underway with girls and boys basketball, wrestling, and boys and girls soccer as well. We have our Best Buddies game against Antelope coming up. The date is still being determined, but it got finalized? Okay, on the 6th. And then on the 7th, we have our annual Ginger Buddies contest, where teachers and students team up to complete to compete and make gingerbread houses against other teacher and students teams.
Fun.
Any questions?
Powder Puff is tomorrow at 6.
Yeah.
And you said taco trucks for sure?
Yes.
Okay. I'll be there.
We're over here making plans.
We got
I'm not
plans.
reading email, I swear.
Putting it in the calendar.
So moving on to board superintendent reports. Trustee Lee?
Yes, just want to take a moment to recognize that in the state of California, November is recognized as Native American Heritage Month, as well as Sikh Awareness and Appreciation Month. And if our schools are doing any activities around those, I'd love to hear about them, or to see what's being done to celebrate those multicultural recognitions of heritage. Also, you notice I have my little button here that says I voted on November 8th. It's something that's so important, and I hope all of our students will register to vote when they become of age, as well as vote. It really does make a difference. Your one vote makes a difference. I'll give you an example. When I ran for this board in 2020, it was a matter of, I think, less than 10 votes that made the difference between me sitting here now and unseating an incumbent that was running against me at the time, or not being here. So it really does make a difference. Every single vote counts, and I encourage you and all community members to vote. We have in this election cycle 3 of our seats up. We won't know until the votes certify in December. I'm checking all the time to see how that's going. It looks like Sacramento County has about 145,000 votes left to process and count. So that's still very much changing each time they update. In Placer County, I'm not too sure what's going on there. A couple of days after election, it said they had 100% of precincts, but the numbers keep changing. So I'm just keeping an eye on that and encourage folks to keep an eye on it too. It might be a glitch in their system. So I have a lot to share about the conversations I've had with community members following our October meeting. And there's been a number of conversations and concerns presented to me. One was regarding a public commenter that we've heard from multiple times now. I'm not sure, but I think they're running for a seat on this board. And folks have been asking me questions about his persistent comments about police officers in our schools and having police officers in our schools, and are we going to do that? And I haven't seen it on our agendas, and I hope not to, because frankly, as an individual board member, I don't support police officers in K through 12 schools, and I don't think that's a necessary thing that would be helpful for learning and achievement for our students. I really think that's the last thing that we as a district need to do, is put armed officers or police officers on our campuses for security reasons. I find that much better budget allotments will be made for social workers, substance abuse counselors, counselors in general, academic counselors. There's so many more ways to spend our money than that. And to help our students to thrive. I also think that we've heard a number of times from public commenters and myself about the need for our district to address problems of monocultural education, as well as racism and homophobia that's in the district. And so I'd like to see us start really addressing that as a board. Racism and homophobia has no place anywhere. We have some policies on it, but I think we need to enact some action around it and some training around it so that we can really shift the culture of our district. This is something that would help in terms of our student achievement, welcomingness, belongingness in our district. And to our student government students who were present and that witnessed some of the board dynamics at our October open session, I want to clarify my perspective on a number of things, and actually some of the things happened today too. If you notice, when I deliver my board reports, I don't interrupt my colleagues. I don't usually speak about them until today. And I also don't make part of my board report responses to or rebuttals to their reports. Yet they consistently do not grant me the same respect. There are no interns here. There are no subordinates here. We are all equal board members in this governance body. If you go back to the recordings and review the meetings for yourself and see that what I'm saying is true. And even today, it happened multiple times. And if you ever find yourself in a similar situation as you serve in student government or public service, I encourage you to continue to aim high, but to also do what's necessary to be heard when it's necessary. And as you conduct your governance meetings, and if you do them according to the Roberts Rules of Order, which we purportedly operate under as a board, when a member during open session, a governing board member, raises a point, that's a signal to the chairperson or the president. And a professional and collegial chairperson or president stops and listens to the point being raised by the member, instead of what you saw multiple times in the October meeting, where the president or chairperson cut me off as a board member or began immediately speaking over me and saying, no, 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 or wait just a minute, and so forth. Not only does that behavior you witnessed throw Robert's Rules of Order into the trash bin, it is also totally out of line with basic civic and civil decorum and our board policies, which we took a look at today. So I apologize that you saw that as an example, and I hope that our student government bodies don't emulate that. I encourage you to look to other local governance bodies to see effective and functional communication practices. And finally, I just want to note, at the end of our meetings, sometimes the students are encouraged to come up to the dais or to, engage with the board members. If you notice, I leave immediately after meeting, and that's for medical reasons. So I don't want anyone to feel like, wow, maybe Dr. Lee doesn't want to talk to me or be with us. It's literally doctor's orders for me. So if you want to connect with me, I welcome you to give me a call, attend my open office hours meetings. I still hold them on Zoom. People do drop into them. I have them on first Mondays of every month from 4 to 5, and the link is on our website, our board website. So I encourage you to stay connected with me and to follow up. And I do listen, and I bring these concerns, and I'll keep bringing these concerns until we make changes that are needed.
Trustee Anderson?
I think we need to go back.
Could you speak in your microphone, please?
I think we need to go back and go over what board reports are for, and how much time we're allotted for them. I would just like to ask Mr. Lair if we can't have the monitors mounted so that people can see, because over half the audience out there can't see what's on this monitor.
The room is under construction, and so they will be. We're just waiting on parts, to be honest. We'll have, I think, 4 monitors will be up around the room. It's a 6, so it's a temporary issue. So
We can't just stick something up there and...
Well, you got to talk to Eugene back there, not me.
Okay. Okay. Other than that, students, you've been so respectful tonight. Thank you for coming, and thank you for sitting there quietly while all this nonsense is going on. I think you've gotten a pretty good gist of what it's all about. I still don't understand what some of the issues are, so don't feel bad if you don't, if you do. So anyway, I want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. Spend some time with your families, let them know you love them, because it really makes a difference sometimes. I know almost every time we have a holiday break over Christmas or Thanksgiving, some unfortunate family loses somebody, and that's not a good thing. So please be careful while you're out there. Have fun with your friends, but be careful that you make it home. I would also like to know if we're going to have any Christmas programs at the elementary schools. And the high school, actually, they've put on some nice ones too, so that we can attend those. So if you hear of some, let me know. And with that, I'll turn it over.
Okay. Trustee Kelly?
Hi. So just a few things. We attended, now I don't remember, was the SCOE dinner within the last month? It
No, that was
It was the month before. Okay, let me not report on that then. Memory. What did we do this past month? We went to the play, right? We went to the play.
Yeah.
That was fantastic. fantastic. That was absolutely great. And I'm just excited that we have so many things going on that the board can go and attend and participate in that are much more joyful than these meetings. So we love what we do. I love doing this. Sadly, I will not be doing this after tonight for at least the next 2 years. But you will still see me because I am still going to be involved in the district, and I'm looking forward to continuing with the design, the equity design team, which is a huge endeavor that we have undertaken as a response to, or in addition to, some of the other equity items that we have brought forward with the policy and such. The equity design team is going to be implementing broad policies and culture shift to ensure that we have diversity and equity in every decision that we make and in every school campus, and that those are first and foremost in our culture and our schools. So I'm excited to be continuing with that. My day job does touch on equity every single day. I work for the Department of Public Health, and our office specifically is responsible for implementing a lot of infrastructure, meaning putting people in place who are specifically dedicated to ensuring equity in healthcare, public health issues. And so I'm very familiar with a lot of the social determinants of health, which are the same determinants that affect education, and just really looking to dig deep into what the issues are with our district specifically, because every district is different, and making sure that those data points are what we are using to make decisions on our actions that will remedy the disparities that exist. So looking forward to that very deep and heavy work. And thank you so much for allowing me to represent this district over the past 2 years, and then prior to that for another 8 years. And this isn't the last you'll see of me. Thank you.
Okay, Trustee Pope?
Thank you, President Bruno.
That was sweet.
Yes, we will miss you, Miss Kelly. You've had a good run, and we'll see you in 2 years.
2 years.
2 years. You'll be back. Well, I'm glad you're going to run. I had the great privilege of touring each school site within the last 2 years. This month, Mr. Lair and I did tour Spinelli, Oak Hill, as well as McClellan. I was introduced to a lot of new people, because we do have a lot of new staff. And I saw some familiar faces, which was warm and touching to my heart. It amazes me how things have changed and how we've progressed throughout the years. And I want to commend the school sites for keeping up with the changes within society and with the rules and regulations set forth. As a board member, it's very important to know what our school district and our school sites are doing. So I recommend each board member to call the superintendent and set up a date to tour the schools, because you don't know what's going on unless you're there and you see and you talk to the administrators. It's very important. At least, if you cannot tour the schools, call the superintendent and ask questions. Don't assume what's not or is going on. And if Mr. Laird does not know, trust me, he visits the school sites multiple times a month. He will find the answer for you. I attended the McClellan High School Try-2B award ceremony and student award showcase on November 9th. As Ms. Mason touched on, they presented 52 awards last week for the trimester 1B. They recognized 11 students for excellent attendance and 41 honor roll student recipients, 6 of which were a 4.0, 15 students, of which are 3.5 to 3.99, and 18 of which are 3.0 to 3.49. 2 our Great Start, which are students that are new to this district that would have received honor roll if they would have been enrolled during the grading period. So I would like to say to McClellan, congratulations to those students. Also during the ceremony, student projects of their art, theater, digital photography, and music culture classes were set up around the cafeteria for viewing. Mr. French and I did stop and speak to a few students, and they were just proud to show their accomplishments. So again, McClellan students, congratulations and a job well done. I attended my first safety meeting on October 31st, and then the facility meeting, which is on November 1st, and great information from both meetings. And happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy your break. That's it.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to apologize in advance if I go a little over on time. I ran it past the board president. He said it was okay. I want to start off by apologizing to everyone for raising my voice earlier. We are all human. Emotions get to us sometimes. I did not act in a way that I want to behave, and I apologize to everyone. Second thing I wanted to mention is I recently received an email from a junior at Center, Michael Yegorov, I hope I pronounced the name correctly, who brought to my attention that Cesar Chavez Day was not on the calendar, and he made a case for why it should be on the district's calendar, not necessarily as a holiday, but to be recognized the same as St. Patrick's Day. Frankly, it was a very well-written email, and he made good points. And when I spoke to Superintendent Lair, it turns out the issue was a simple oversight when the calendar was set up, so that will be taken care of. But I want to encourage all of you. If there is a change you want to see made, speak up. Use your voice. We are here to listen. We are here to support you, and you can make change. This was a small change, but if there's something significant that you want changed, bring it to our attention, advocate for it. Change can happen. I also wanted to mention, as Trustee Kelly did, about the play that Mr. Mason spoke about last month. Went to that, had a really good time. Mr. Huey said at the beginning of the play that most of the cast, it was their first time performing. And I would say from watching the play, I would not have guessed that. It was really well done. It was a lot of fun, a lot of good humor in it. It was a great time. In the spirit of Thanksgiving, I want to take a moment to say thanks to a few people. I'm nearing the end of my first term as a board member here, and don't know yet what will happen with the election, so this could be my last meeting as well as Kelly's. So I want to start by thanking Donald Wilson, Jeremy Hunt, Delroy Pope, and Nancy Anderson for giving me this opportunity. I appreciate you all. I was going to go through and list district staff who I really appreciate what they contribute, but frankly, I would be here all night. Each and every one of you. Well, first of all, part of the reason I decided to get involved with the school board is I work for a school district, and I don't necessarily always feel appreciated there. I want to let the staff of this district know I appreciate you all. Superintendent is the staff member I interact with most of all, and I think we have a good working relationship. And there are people at the school sites that I don't interact with. But I also understand the importance of their roles. Whether it's a janitor, a teacher, a noon duty aide, principal, vice principal, whoever, you are all playing a very important role. And especially for the staff members that show up to these meetings on a consistent basis, the union representatives, I really appreciate everything you guys do. I want to give a special shout out to the technical crew that keeps these meetings running. Eugene, I don't know how you managed to pull this off during the pandemic when we were all remote. I really appreciate it. This has been an interesting experience. It's been at times a challenging experience, but it has been a very rewarding experience, especially things like graduation, that seeing everyone walk across the stage. I'm so proud of everything. I'm so proud of what everyone accomplishes. But anyway, the other thing I want to say is I want to thank my fellow candidates for office. I think the campaign was not only a fair campaign, I think everyone was polite, friendly, and even cooperative. One of my signs got taken down and thrown in the bushes, and someone else's banner got taken down. Well, I went to go replace the sign, and I rehung the banner to the best of my ability. And then the candidate whose banner it was fixed the banner, because I didn't do a very good job, and found my sign that had been thrown in the bushes and put that up for me. We're competing against each other, but also 3 of the candidates are going to have to serve together. And I think that this race has put us all on a good foot forward. And I really am optimistic about what this board can accomplish. So if this is my last meeting, thank you all. If this is not my last meeting, I'll be here to be difficult again next month. So thank you. Superintendent Lair?
Thank you, President Bruno. So I just want to acknowledge and start by thanking Kelly for her service on the board. And I do know we've had multiple conversations. She's not going anywhere. She's got a lot of ideas of things to help out in the community and be a part of the district. So we appreciate for her. While it may not be at the board table right now, it'll be continued in the community, and so we appreciate that. Thank you for the service you've given. Also, as each person has touched on, the school events and the tours that I've been on are incredible. The Dia de los Muertos activity, when I spoke with the 2 teachers and the club advisors that put it on, it was remarkable. The students pulled it off, and the teachers gave them full credit. Very, very cool experience. And the McClellan Awards, Miss Pope gave the statistics of it, but the statistics I saw were multiple parents so proud of their kids, their students, crying, running up to take pictures, and that's what it's all about. And so to see that and just the pride of a parent, a caregiver for their loved one was really impressive. Also, just a couple things too. This SFS, the FRC, I'm sure call it that. I can't mess up the name all the time. Did a great job today with our food drive, handing food out for those that wanted it. But also, I want to acknowledge and thank the Lions Club, because they had over 50 turkeys that they also handed out at the food drive today. So I thank the Wartinas and their crew for all their assistance. It was really cool. Jerry and Mickey both had a truck bed full of turkeys, which is pretty cool to see. And with the shortage that I've learned what there is, you need to get one while you can. Also, the couple other exciting things, the board did approve tonight some contracts to begin our ELOP, our Extended Learning Opportunity Plan. Thank Mr. Barassi for his work on getting these contracts together. We're starting at our schools to get this going small, but it'll be a great opportunity for the families that I've spoken to have their students be able to spend time before and after school for a longer periods free of charge. So we're looking to roll that out. And then another thing that I think is very positive for the district that helps our students participate in different events and even stay well is Campus Clinic, which Mr. Jordan had shared. They were doing COVID clinic. They were helping us with that. Have expanded into Campus Clinic. The board approved the agreement with them 2 months ago. And starting on December 10th, we have an opportunity for our students to get sports physicals. So you don't have to try and schedule an appointment at Kaiser or wherever it may be, which is very difficult. But also just wellness, if someone wants to schedule a wellness time. And a lot of people are COVID is out there, but there are a lot of other illnesses that are out there too. And if we can provide that, and I believe Mr. Jordan is at Center High School with it will be? And free. And so anyway, I just think that's a great service that we'll be giving. So we've already started getting word out, and then we'll have an opportunity for folks to register and take advantage of that. And then finally with that, I just, the last thing is I hope everyone has a great week off next week, enjoys Thanksgiving, enjoys their loved ones, and gets a chance to relax and not think about school. Anyway, thank you, Chester.
Nice. No homework.
Okay.
Maybe
Advanced
we're
planning,
home.
future meeting date, Wednesday, December 14th at 6 PM. Any suggested agenda items?
I'd like to elevate the request from the public commenter today, who requested that we have a discussion and information provided around how the district is addressing bullying. I think that's important for us as a board to know and be aware of, and to have a talk about.
Mr. Barassi is going to be here next month, right? Is that something he could touch base on?
I'll work with staff to see, but we are doing an attendance engagement update, but then we can also bring that. And then Mr. Miranda might be able to do that, because I know you also approved some work around bullying tonight for some training from SCOE, is it?
Yeah.
So we'll work with staff to see if we can at least start the conversation, because it's a big conversation. But if we can address it, and then we might loop Mr. Jordan in on some of that too. So happy to do that.
Your job's never done, is it? Well, I'm talking to Mr. Jordan.
While I'm still here, I can make a recommendation for a board agenda item, right?
Absolutely.
So I would love to see, maybe not right away, but at some point, an update from the equity design team about the work that's gone into, the groundwork and level setting and what the next steps are and such have you. I think that would be great for that team to present it themselves. Board would be very excited to hear what they're doing, so.
And thank you. I neglected in my report that we actually have our next meeting, not
The
this coming week, but the
29th.
next week, the 29th.
How many people are on the team? Changing the
just
subject,
under-
you can
just
tell
under
me
20.
later. Okay, that's it. Sorry, it's off topic.
Carol, do you have a way of contacting that woman who called in about the Brown Act? Maybe we could contact her, get more specifics, or inform her.
I think she shared that she's going to shoot us an email with the information, so we'll be able to communicate with her. She shared that she was going to look in her book and then get with us, so we certainly would reach out, absolutely. And the timer was a note I put down. That's absolutely correct. A lot of districts I've seen, you can put it up virtually, so I'll work with Eugene to see if we can figure that out. So appreciated that info.
Just to address something really quickly, Trustee Kelly said, hey, even though this is my last meeting, can I add something? To the members of the public, if there's something you would like to see on the agenda, reach out to us. You can speak at a board meeting, you can email the board itself. I personally love to hear from the public, and so I encourage you guys to do this. We've actually had times where someone reached out and we've added agenda items. The only thing I would like to say is we prepare the agenda well in advance, so please try to give us at least 2 weeks before the board meeting. That would be very much appreciated.
Could I make a note on
Absolutely.
that? You also have Center High School students. You have Riley
Yes. That
at
is
your
true.
disposal. So if you have any questions, you could ask Riley. And then he could also, contact the board if you wish not to do so.
You might want to let that lady know that she can have agendas mailed to her as well.
Or the superintendent.
Okay.
All right. Continuation of closed session, we don't need. And so adjournment, do I have a motion on this?
I'll second that.
You know what? Yeah, let's let Trustee Kelly make that motion. And seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
No.
Meeting adjourned.
Wow.
Hey, Kelly.